Welcome to the Fusionary Health Podcast. I have a special guest in store for you today, Dr. Pedram Shojai. Welcome, Pedram, to the podcast.
Nice to be here.
Awesome. Well, I want to introduce you guys to the Urban Monk and tell you a little about him before we get started. So he's a New York Times bestselling author and filmmaker. He's a Taoist abbot and Qigong master, husband and dad, and he's here to help us find our way for finding healthiness and happiness. And he says here, I don't want to be your guru, just someone who will point you on the way. And so welcome, Pedram. I'm really excited to have you here to talk about some of the many topics that you've been teaching about for years now. So
thank you. Nice to be here.
So I have a question, my first question to kick off, before we even ask you like your journey. I see you're putting a lot of films together, and you've already put many books together. Are you doing that because you believe that films can get that point across better nowadays and really land the point? Or what has led you into filmmaking?
Yeah. Reluctant admission that people don't read. Sort of that. People just don't read as much. And, it's one thing to complain about things changing and no one doing the staying on the medium that used to be, or meet them where they're at if your intended outcome and the vows you took was to help them. So, long form, long docu-series, all things that I've done over my career, and now increasingly more short form, right? Because of the way the attention economy has trained the minds of the people all around us, right? No one's got time. So, tell me what I got to know. And so, it's, again, I'm a book aficionado. I read a lot of books, but not everyone I'm trying to help does. So I'm not going to force them to climb up the mountain. I'll walk down to the village.
Right. That makes total sense. Well, on the topic of mountains and villages, will you share your journey to what you do now?
Yeah. Long path, pre-med UCLA, hated it. Weren't really working hard to help people at the time there. It was just morphine and, some palliative care is all we had for pain management. And it shook me. Like, I don't see myself doing this for the rest of my life. It's kind of depressing. And met a Taoist Kung Fu master. I was like, holy moly, what is this? Started learning Tai Chi and Qigong and feeling energy between my palms, and couldn't explain what it was, but couldn't deny the fact that I was experiencing it. And good science then has to change its worldview and its thesis to now accommodate a new, data set. And so I just went full in, and I started studying. I traveled the world, went through India, Nepal, Thailand. I studied with many, many different masters, and really kind of dug into the esoteric side of introspection, right, and to interoception, and then came back and, I was a doctor of Oriental medicine and really was one of the first integrative medicine docs in Southern California, and functional medicine, all the stuff. And so, just been trying to help people with health and mind-body awareness for the last 15, 20 years, and, found it easier to speak in the media and intercept the folks before they ended up in the MASH unit. Because if you live the traditional Western lifestyle, chances are you're going to get sick, right? It's set up that way, and it sucks. So how do you avoid falling into that hole? And that's kind of been the last dozen years of my life.
Nice. And I saw online you're teaching courses and doing things like that. So what are some of the topics that you teach inside of your coursework?
Yeah, it started a dozen years ago, teaching people kind of the core framework of life gardening, right? You have only a certain amount of energy, time, and money at any given point in your life, and you say you have all these priorities. Well, which one of them get the water, right? You have your career, you have your health, you have your family. I mean, you cannot water all the plants at once effectively and see everything thrive. And so how do you manage where your energy is going so that you actually get the outcomes you want and not be frustrated and not run out of energy or, have a heart attack because you emphasized career? And over the course of the last dozen years, it's like, wow, you're not well in your gut. Let's go do something. So I've done, courses on gut health and brain health, and, tantra and dream yoga and oral health. And so over the last dozen years, thousands of students, I've kind of followed the breadcrumbs, if you will, of where my students were ailing. And if I have something smart to say about it, I'll teach the course. And if I don't, then I'll get Jeff Bland or David Perlmutter or, just best in class to say, hey, will you teach my folks about brain health? Because we need help there. So we have, I don't know, 40 something courses now.
Wow, that's amazing. I love the term you used, life gardening, because I think one of the big problems is nowadays we want it all, and we're sold this picture that we can have it all. Like my social media definitely sells me on the idea that I can have my epic career and company and be beautiful, fit, and strong, and have this conscious parenting experience with my beautiful children and maintain a stunning home that I don't know how any of those women have homes like that, and travel and live on the Amalfi Coast part of the year, and have this Christmas that's gorgeous. Like the list goes on and on.
Don't
And
forget
I
the
find
bikini bod.
the bikini body, the biohacking, and I think we always feel behind from social media. I always feel like, gosh, like I'm trying, but how do those people have all that? And I do a pretty good job at execution and I'm tired. So how do you teach people how to really life garden and prioritize? Because I think modern day is selling us this idea that if you just worked hard enough, you could have it all. So what's wrong with you?
Well, let's just start by saying I know most of those people, and either she's 26 or she's not telling you that she's taking testosterone cream. You don't see her smoking behind stage. There's just a lot of BS, and so don't believe everything you see, especially on social media. We'll start with that, right? And then really, it's about weighing the reality of what you have available to you, right? Like, I coach my son's football and it's stepping on our ski season. So it's like, buddy, we can't ski and play football in the same weekend. So here we go. Let's talk about trade-offs, right? And so everything in life is a trade-off. And the way marketing works is to say, here's a gaping hole in how you feel about yourself. Now I'm going to teach you how to feel better, scratch that itch, and solve this problem right now, instantly. And they play on your emotions, and they play on our weakness, and they play on our dopamine, and they play on all sorts of very, very known factors to get us to become consumers of a pipe dream. And if you want to get real, it's like, okay, well, I got 24 hours in a day. I'm supposed to sleep 8 of them. So let me optimize my sleep. Okay, I got to eat 3 meals. What am I putting in my body? Let me optimize that part of my life, and then start optimizing to have more efficiency, energy, vitality, and happiness in my 24 hours. And then I have kind of profit, if you will, in a way where then I could roll that energy forward into dreams and aspirations, but not all in the same week, not all in the same quarter, right? And so I just think that it's not tethered in reality. And so people are becoming hungry ghosts, as the Buddha would say, and stumbling, trying to chase pipe dreams because they're not turning inward to be like, does this make sense? Right? And it happens with diets. It happens with, I'm going on a $12,000 yoga retreat because I'm stressed out. I don't know if that was the best use of your $12,000 in a week of your life away from your kids, but okay, the marketing was really great. You came back and 2 weeks later, you had the same life, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because you went and studied and went on this journey. As a child, I went to a spiritual temple called Chinmaya Mission. So you could go to the Hindu temple, or Chinmaya Mission taught Vedantic philosophy is really what they taught. And so when I went to the retreats and weekends, a lot of what they taught us was, look, it's always going to be tempting. This is called Maya. This is all illusion. All this world of instant satisfaction and instant gratification is there. Always remember what's true and what's pure. And so when I hear you speak, I'm just thinking about if we could learn to understand that those 16 hours are pretty crucial. In the 16 hours I do have awake, I am trying to eat really well and hydrate well and put beautiful, great things in my body and do the same for my family. So you're right, it is really trade-offs. Like how much can you push out of your list of desires and things you don't need so that you stay focused on those things that are most important and have space and time and intentionality and consciousness with them. Because otherwise, you're right, we are empty ghosts, hungry ghosts too, running around and not ever actually satisfying ourselves. We're just chasing.
It's designed that way. It's gamified that way. There's AI and servers and multiple PhDs, gaming your attention away from your life garden into the priorities of the highest bidder, right? Toyota would love you to look over here and buy a truck, right? Prada needs you to feel like without their purse or their shoes, you're just not a desirable mate for the guy you're trying to meet, or whatever the hell the hook is. They're working really hard to extract the money out of your pocket. And what's money, right? It's a store of value. And normally we trade either our time or our energy in the form of labor or something for that money. And so your time, your energy, and your money, they're kind of on a continuum. And if it's flying out of your pocket mindlessly, are you really in control of your life? Or is your life force being parasitically pilfered out of you and away from your family into the desires of the guy flying the private jet, showing you his Instagram, talking about how good it is? You're the food, right? And so you got to take it back. You got to get back into your own awareness and consciousness, start working on your health, start working on concentric rings outward to come back to life, because the rest of it's a freaking matrix, right? Maya and the matrix and all these metaphors are very, clear examples of what is actually happening, and it's been happening to various degrees since the beginning of time. I mean, the Vedas talking about Maya, that ain't new, right? And so now the attention economy has just doubled down on it. Now it's an electronic, parasitic, super psychic superorganism that has its own intelligence that is gamifying your attention away from your life and your priorities. Oops, right? That ain't healthy.
True. Very true. So how do you guide people to avoid it? Is the first step iPhone regulation, put the iPhone down? Because I think part of the issue, and I see this with my team and myself, we choose to grow my company through social. And so then you participate in social because your job is to understand what's current, to build content, but it's such a hook in, like it's such a strong, you literally get sucked in. And so a lot of times I will tell myself, put your phone down. It's about reading real books. It's about audio books. It's about time in nature. When I go for my evening walks, I have no device because I don't even want it in my field. And I don't listen to anything or participate with phone calls at that time. And it is honestly my favorite time of the day when I actually just go walk in nature and allow nature to help me decompress my whole system. And so what are some other, I wouldn't call them hacks, but practices that you recommend?
Yeah. And I don't like the word hack. I mean, just think about what like a serial killer does. They hack, right? So this biohacker dude bro language is just inappropriate for human bodies. I just think that, I don't even know how the hell it got here, but I don't like it. Look, you have to turn your attention and your awareness back on your own actual existence. And one of the best, easiest ways from Vedas on was always anchoring into the five senses: smell, touch, feel, right? Sight. So can I turn my vision inward and look inside? Can I listen to my breath as I breathe silently? Can I swallow my spit and watch it travel down my body and feel all of my chakras opening, and all the kind of internal Neigong yogic practices that one would do if they were into that kind of stuff? Those are internal spiritual technologies to take our perceptual array and move more value to interoception, right? And like, okay, what am I feeling right now? What's going on? What am I sensing? Oh, I'm tired because I came down from coffee. No, I'm tired because I didn't sleep well last night. No, I'm tired because I ate a cheese bean burrito. And so you start to really analyze and understand what's happening with your body and your moods and the ups and downs of your energy flow based on a data stream that we've cut off. Right?
True.
No, I need my Aura ring to tell me everything. I need my doctor to tell me what to do. And so I think that's kind of one of the first places we got hijacked. Is our own innate wisdom is valued less in a tech bro culture. And that's bullshit, right? That's bullshit. Especially since 72% of my followers are women, and they're being given really bad male advice from 27-year-old guys who have no idea what female hormones are about, or, what it's like to be a mom. So it's just, they're taking bad advice from the wrong avatar.
It's so true. I'm in the biohacking world, and just now I sat down to write out my conference schedule, and I was like, okay, you have to go to A4M Vegas. You have to go. And my whole body was like, no, I don't want to learn a new tool for anything. I don't want to walk that show floor. I don't. And then another voice in me was like, you have to go. That's for your
Mm,
business. Sorry. But I'm kind of sick of learning. I'm kind of sick of the chasing of
mhm,
tool after tool, because every single time my intuition says, that's not an ancient wisdom that actually applies to you. And
mhm.
so, will you speak a little more about that? Because I do think that we're in this culture, like you said, of instant gratification and chasing. And some of these biohacking tools are harsh. Like I don't know that I am actually meant to cold plunge in this life.
Mhm.
My whole being says hell no.
Ah, yeah. Well, and that's exactly it, is where is your allostatic load, right? I just spoke at a conference where I met you at, and I had the people in the room raise their hand, because we're at a wellness expo kind of thing, right? Like, how many people here came into this deal with some sort of diagnosable illness and some ailment that took them to Western medicine, and then those arrogant punks failed them because they don't listen, and there's this whole continuum of healthcare being broken, and then people ending up in the wild, wild west of wellness, and then taking advice from uncredentialed biohacker bros who are giving untethered advice that is probably not necessarily in their best interest at times either, right? And so what came of it was the majority of the room had some sort of allostatic load, some sort of pressure on their biology and their physiology from systems being out of harmony, whether it's your hormones, whether it's your gut, whether your immunity. And that allostatic pressure creates inflammatory cascades. It creates issues that makes you unwell. And so you're like, oh man, I told my doctor and they just mansplained over it and I still don't feel well. So this guy's talking about an ice bath, maybe I'll try that, right? And the ice bath is fine for someone who can use a hormetic stressor that doesn't have the shit you just came in with. But
Right.
taking that untethered advice from someone who has no idea where you came from, what your blood work looks like, and what your allostatic load is, you're going to put yourself into a week of insomnia from that ice bath, right? Your system is going to freak out. And so this is where I think the wellness industry is really untethered, and I think it's going to be wild wild west for several more years.
I
But I
agree.
think that ever since the pandemic, there's just a hell of a lot of really bad advice from unqualified, uncredentialed folks who look good on Instagram. And somehow that equates with health wisdom and the ability to have a right to speak to you about your individual health. And now, I'm not saying go take health advice from morbidly obese and unhealthy looking doctors. But I'm saying also, if someone is giving you health advice, ask them if they've ever been in a clinical practice and have taken an oath and actually have the right to speak on these matters, right? Because I've run into some monkeys in the last
Really.
few years who have no right to be telling people what to do with their health, but Instagram says they're popular, right?
Right.
And it's dangerous.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, the algorithm supports what the algorithm supports. And so a lot of times the people who rise on the algorithm, I'm looking at them, and then I'll be looking up the people who I admire. I have like a top 20 list of people whose content that I really admire. Women in this wellness space who've been teaching for years, many of whom I'm sure you know. I know you were talking to Sarah Zoll, who used to be Sarah Gottfried. I mean, these are people who've been doing the work for decades. Instagram might not support them, versus it'll support some 20-year-old who's a newly minted health coach who can tell us how to manage our gut. So it's just interesting
Mhm.
to kind of watch that ebb and flow that happens and kind of
Yeah.
see it for what it is, which is we have to be very critical of who we're going to follow and who we're going to learn from, and really what bodies of work we're going to study. I teach Ayurveda because for me, Ayurveda changed my whole life, and that ancient practice of, like you said, becoming introspective and trusting your own intuitive intelligence has been the path that worked best. And what's great about it is it does kind of blockade so much of what's offered. I think really hard before I buy a device or choose to take a supplement or take any step forward in my health, because each one is me adding a habit. We call it habit stacking now, the more we stack, the less time, like you said, we have in our life garden for other things.
Yeah. And buying more stuff isn't helping you have more peace of mind. I want to go back to the point that we were making, just to kind of put some closure on it. I think Western medicine and the broken healthcare system had it coming because they played people like fools, and they got very arrogant, and they didn't listen to their patients.
Mm.
And they said, well, you must be hysterical. This is all in your head. And, all the stupid, idiotic things that the traditional medical model did to tell you to shut up and go away because you're not the doctor, created this monster. And now the monster is untethered. And I think somewhere in between is some reasonable conversation around how to fix oneself. Right. But the problem with the industry, I've been in it for a very long time, right, is that telling you to eat right is great advice that you've already heard but didn't listen to, and it doesn't make me any money. Right. But telling you to take this, I'm not going to pick up anyone's particular bottle because I don't want to diss anybody, but taking this, magic potion in a bottle that's going to solve all your problems, you're going to run out and buy it right then because you've been trained to.
Right.
And cha-ching, you just made the economy go, right? The gadgets and the devices and the beds and the sun, it's a race to consumption. And the consumer meets healthcare model is a very juicy space where private equity has come in. There's just a lot of this is a feeding frenzy and you're the food, right? That's been the challenge. And I think there are some serious ethical considerations in that we don't need to talk about, but productizing health has a lot of downside.
Sure. And you can see that in menopause and perimenopause. I just went and saw this menopause documentary, and I thought, and by the way, documentaries are such a beautiful way to educate the public because we can consume it and then consume it again. And it's so visual, so it lands really well for all of us who are visual learners. But it talks so much about the level of cognitive decline. And so the image I have in my mind is women's cognitive health, perimenopause, menopause, like this steep decline. And I thought, yeah. Do you know how hard I've been asking for brain solutions for the last year and a half, and how I've had to shift my life to actually support brain health first? My sleep is curated a certain way. I plan my workouts on certain days. Like, I've built my life around it because it had such an impact. I could tell I don't have access to all the file storage rooms of my brain. And that's irritating when you know they're right there and you can't access them. And so this documentary was just so validating versus when I have gone to doctors in the past, they're like, you're fine. You're just fine. And so to me, it's appalling that we can go to doctors looking for answers and they don't have the training or knowledge to handle us. And women are so gaslit in our health and told, just wait till it's full blown. I'll give you a chronic med for that. And then you look over into integrative functional medicine. And yes, there is a lot of productizing. It's a lot right now, but at least you're given some relief and some support and some understanding and some approaches,
Mm-hmm. I mean, if you look at the doctor giving you that bad advice and you ascertain that they're drinking more coffee than they should just to push through their day to give you the same kind of double down on the bad hand kind of health advice, that therein lies a problem, right? But it is also an inconvenient truth that you don't have time for. I mean, you got kids, you got a career, you got all this stuff, and you're like, oh man, my brain's not working as well. And so instead of saying, okay, my DHEA has dropped because I have some inflammatory thing in my gut, and because of that, just following these breadcrumbs to fix the thing.
Yes.
You could just say, oh, look at this nootropic. It's supposed to be good for the brain.
It's true. Of course we go there first.
I'm gonna jump over this whole deal with it thing because I don't have time for that. And I'm just going to go take dude's nootropic over there and, basically just plug my finger into the holes on the boat and just get to the next safe harbor. And that's when I'll stop and heal and relax. Right. And I've been around long enough to say that doesn't work. Right. It just doesn't work. But nobody's got time to actually heal. And I actually have a strong opinion as to why. And I've been really working towards some leverage to help people along those lines. And I think a lot of it has to do with safety signals and our inability to actually heal, because we're trying. We're throwing
Yeah.
darts. We're trying to heal. We go to the, acupuncturist. We go to the naturopath. I got a massage at the spa. I feel a little better. I'm back to my life. Why? Because I never shut down the safety signals that are ringing alarms in my body saying it's not safe. Now, that could come from a spouse that's kind of an asshole. That could come from environmental toxins that I'm exposing myself to. My body's saying, hey, but can't speak English, so it makes me feel anxious or tired or gives me insomnia. It could come from endotoxemia, which 80 to 90% of us have from leaky guts and lipopolysaccharides dumping into our bloodstream, setting off our immune system, saying, hey, I'm not safe. But all of these signals, as soon as the body is being told it's not safe, neurologically, physiologically, immunologically, psychologically, sociologically, on any level, it starts to signal to our mitochondria to say, hey, you know what? Maybe now's not a time to grow this animal. And it powers down our mitochondria. We have less energy and we're hunkered down trying to heal, but we can't because it's not safe. Because if I'm not safe, I'm sleeping with one eye open, aren't I?
Correct.
And if I'm sleeping with one eye open, I can never truly restore, recover, and relax because I did not let down my guard and let my body heal because it's not safe. And so taking these safety signals, these triggers out of people's lives, I've found a lot of leverage in getting them to finally be able to heal. And I start with their home. I start with their environment. I start with their pillow. It's like, if you have some toxic pillow that you just bought because someone said it's cool and you're huffing paint this close to your face every night, what do you think your body's telling you? If there's toxic chemicals coming into your brain from the pillow that you decided to park your face on for 8 hours.
True. No, it's very true. Home as sanctuary, as you're calling it, is so important. It's interesting. My family and I traveled through India together when I wanted to study Ayurveda, and we were going south, north, east, west. And every time we stayed in those retreat centers, we would detox and heal. But when I ask myself a lot to do these detoxes quarterly in my own home, because I'm running the same schedule, I don't let go of the schedule. I can't actually detox. And it's happened because my team will be like, why is your brain not working? We're asking you for YouTube videos. And I'm like, you don't get it. I can't perform at that same level if I'm trying to hold an Ayurvedic detox. So I feel like you made such a powerful argument for if you do want to heal and need it, go to an immersion place, because sometimes we have to let go of everything in our lives to heal. And then also, how can you make home such a powerful place of healing? So will you share with us some of your thoughts on that? Because I'm very obsessed with home being healthy and the place where we heal.
Yeah, the problem is just check the airfare on the next vacation you want to go, and you're going to be like, right? Like, it is so expensive to go to these things and, think I need this because I need to recover, and I need this for me. But you go do it and you come back, and 3 weeks later, you're the same deal, right? And so what I've really decided to do is help my students double down on making home a safe sanctuary, because that's where you spend the majority of your time. The 8 hours, the 8 out of 24 hours that you're supposed to be sleeping is in a bedroom. Start with that. And let's make home feel safe, because once you do so, then you have a safe harbor to come in on a regular cadence to rest, recover, restore, and heal. Now, you alluded to something that I think is incredibly important, because I can tell you right now, Shivani, to be like, okay, look, you're going to go set up an area of a corner of your house or a corner of your bedroom if you live in a one-bedroom apartment, but set up a sacred space for your altar and put your picture of Jesus or Babaji or whatever you want with a non-toxic candle, and yum, right? And there's your meditation cushion, and that's your sacred space. But if you don't assign time to that space, time and space are what anchor us in reality. You could set up the space and the spiders will love it. The dust will settle. The kids will put their crayons on it. But you have to assign time in that space to bring it to life and get the value out of it. So it has to be in your calendar.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm laughing because I'm in my home office, and next to me is my meditation corner, and I have Durga Ji, who's my goddess. I have everything there. I
Except
never
you.
sit in that corner. It's a great, beautiful meditation corner. Lots of crystals. It's real nice. I go there
Hmm.
on Saturday, Sunday, occasionally to go meditate. So yeah, true.
Yeah. And we're all guilty as charged, because the one boundary I think that most people in the West are obnoxiously bad at holding is the one in their phone, which is the calendar. What am I supposed to be doing right now? And allocating time to do that and only that. Like if I was checking text messages and, like getting into my asana while I'm doing this podcast with you, it would be rude, disruptive, disrespectful, and inappropriate, wouldn't it? But we
Right.
do that with so many of the things in our lives that don't deserve our splintered attention, right?
It's
You
true.
have to make the time. You have to make the time.
Do you recommend people put it right in their calendar?
100%. My calendar blocked off. Morning, Qigong, workout, kids, right? Because I start my day with the still water. And then when they wake up, it's like kids and dogs and pandemonium. It's like I'm in whitewater very quickly.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'll go with the dogs and watch the sunrise over there and watch the sunset on the other side the other day. And those are the bookends. Everything in between has a lot of chaos that I have to manage because I have a 9-year-old and a 10-year-old. And you know what I mean? I'm in that phase of a householder's life. And so I have to curate my days to start with the tranquility and the gratitude and whatever practices I need before I walk into the mom, he took my shoe. You know what I mean? There's just, it starts and it doesn't stop, and you could manage and mitigate and all that. And look, I was a monk and I know how to do this better than most. And I'm telling you, chaos prevails. You have to anchor yourself in calm. But if you don't set time and space for that and curate it in a way so that your days have these bookends and these little moments that you establish are 100% required for you to just stop time, you're just mumbling and tumbling and stumbling. And, 5 years later, you're going to the A4M and getting some cream because they said this is what's going to make you feel better. Bullshit.
It's true. It's true. I love the idea of bookending. I already intuitively do it, but you're right. Sometimes if you haven't made that commitment and decision with yourself that it's going to happen, it can easily get thrown out. I'll sit on the couch and say, I just have to edit one chapter of my book. My book is due to my editor like December 31st for my Hay House book, January 2026. So it's an exciting thing. But the minute I sit to do that work, boom, evening walk went out the window. Like the sun is going to set without you. And
Mm.
so putting it in the calendar is a beautiful way to commit to yourself that this is the practice I honor for myself to build my peace. I call it collecting peace, like just the peace I need to get through what you talked about, which is all the chaos hours.
If you don't mind, I'll give you some advice on this because, 8 books into my New York Times best-selling career, I've done this a couple times.
Yeah.
Nothing interrupts my writing time unless there's an actual fire. I block off 90 minutes at most to write, and then I get up and do something and move my body and all that. But I don't write during my admin time. I don't write during my community time. And so I block time. I have it color coded in my calendar. I chunk the time. But when I'm writing, that's the only thing I'm allowed to do. And when it says meditation, I'm not taking that phone call. I don't even care if it's mom, unless it is an actual emergency. This guy's meditating. I'm going to go watch the sunrise. I'm going to go watch the sunset. And so it's respect for yourself. It's respect for the plants in your life garden to anchor time and space for them in your life. Now, the space you could do in your house and all that, right? You create a sanctuary, but your calendar has to reflect your priorities. And if it doesn't, you're not doing it. You're not doing it because Instagram's going to take that time.
Yep, easily.
So-and-so's mom called and they want to talk about drama with, so-and-so's daughter. Oh,
True.
That call went an extra 45 minutes, didn't it? Right? And you just got to be, hey, you know what? Let's talk, at the party. I'm busy. The book's not going to write itself, right?
No.
But the book could write itself if you take a bite out of your sunset time, your intimacy with your husband, and time from your kids. Do they deserve that? I don't have time for the conversation with that mom. I don't.
No, it's true. And And it's interesting in the book I am writing, it's on inflammation and Ayurveda. One whole chapter is actually dedicated to non-toxic living. And I feel like I talked about this topic so much when I wrote a book called The Conscious Pregnancy years ago, because I was obsessed with non-toxic living then, and I implemented it and I don't think about it too much because I do find once you put a non-toxic lifestyle into place, it's just how you live. We don't use plastic, containers in the kitchen. It's all glass. That we only pan heat. We don't use the microwave. So what are some of those things? Because I do think that when you talk about allostatic load, so much of why we are so inflamed as a society and suffering, and even brain health is affected because gut is affected. And of course, parasympathetic is set off all the time. Sympathetic set off all the time. We're never in our parasympathetic, relaxed, rest and digest. What are some of your tools you recommend to shift their home space in a way that it's not constantly causing stress? Because I think of the typical ones. Laundry rooms full of toxic chemicals, kitchen sink underneath can be full of toxic chemicals that affect you. Your own bathroom, all the makeup and skincare we wear as women can be real problematic. So I'm trying to clean that countertop up as well right now and make a big switch to cleaner because I don't want the endocrine disruption in my system. Why have that? Most people are talking about like right now a lot. But what are some of those primary ones you think of?
Yeah, so you covered the chemicals. I think some of the stuff that people don't think about enough are the linens, the fabrics, anything that has polyester or any petroleum-based product in it. Has petroleum leaching into your skin. It also has volatile organic compounds much of the time. But by law, it is legislated to also have flame retardant chemicals on it because God forbid your pajamas catch on fire. And so you are doubling down on inhaling and having this kind of waft in through your skin, which is your largest organ. That's a big one. I think the biologicals have to be mentioned: mold, dust mites, mildew. It's really like pandemic levels because of the way the houses don't breathe. And there's a whole thing. I just did a 6-part docuseries on this topic. So it's, I've been in this. And that becomes a very big one. Flooring, formaldehyde, radon, which naturally occurs in certain areas, comes up and you're breathing it. The obvious ones like carbon monoxide in the VOCs, if your range or your gas in your kitchen doesn't have a proper hood or it's just leaking, this is stuff that is constantly battering us. The one that a lot of people, even in the wellness industry, take for granted is fragrances. And so, if you're using the like Glade plug-in stuff from Target, like, oh my God, stop now, right? That stuff has known chemicals and endocrine disruptors and, all of it. But I think a lot of people then transition to saying, well, I have some lavender oil that I diffuse.
Right.
Okay. What did they put in that lavender oil and how much do you trust this company? Because, yes, a little bit of lavender here and there is probably, going to be okay for your indoor air quality. But these companies are shisty, especially if they're multi-level marketing, because the margin goes to the middleman and not into the product and the benefit of you as a consumer. So there's just a lot of additives and chemicals and, things that you shouldn't be breathing put into that stuff. And I'm not going to, poo-poo on any brands. Just get the cleanest possible organic quality, and they all lie. So that's bad, right? And the obvious stuff you'd mentioned a little bit, but in the kitchen, like don't store your food in plastic. Don't freeze your food in plastic. So glass storage, the basics over there go a long way. And making sure as much as you can, you consume organic produce, organic vegetables, wash it anyways, and make sure the storage of that food is in a place where, it's not going to pick up mold or, good produce goes bad. So go to the store more often, cook it more regularly, eat it fresh, and stop storing food in ways that are kind of unbecoming of a mammal that like is designed to get fresh polyphenols and the foods. Those are the bigs. And obviously, look, and you could read all sorts of stuff about saying, well, these are the plants NASA said clean the air. Nah. I've looked at the studies. They don't do it well enough. Get a really good HEPA carbon air filter. Get UV light to kill the bugs in the air. Get
Sure.
really good reverse osmosis and remineralize if you need to. But your air and your water are non-negotiable. And then, for
Absolutely.
God's sakes, take off the shoes before you come in the house, and vacuum and wet mop a lot, because even if you go as non-toxic as you can, on the other side of that door is a dirty world.
It's true. It's true. Thanks for scaring my audience, but it's very true. Everything you said. Like,
Listen,
absolutely.
I never said I wanted to make friends, but I'm never going to sugarcoat anything, because your children and your very existence is threatened
Yeah.
by the things that are out there. So just don't let them climb the castle walls. Don't let that crap in the house, right? My house feels safe because I go through measures to make sure the crap doesn't come in. And then, oh my God, the holidays. Oh, Uncle so-and-so bought this stupid thing from Target, and you open it up and it's like plastic shit. You're like, what? I don't want this in my house. Stop buying this. So I have like an investment fund for my children. I say, you want to buy them something? Put your $25, your $50 in that.
Smart. It's their future investment fund into what they want to create and do.
Yeah, I'm done. I'm done fueling a trade deficit and geopolitics that are run on petroleum-based wars. Like, this is stupid. I don't want that in my house. My kids are, as soon as they get it, they're sick of it and they want the next thing.
True.
And so, like, that entire consumption-based economy that poisons us and poisons the planet and is just such a waste of resources, except for the guy who is selling you the product. He's
True.
laughing, right? He's laughing. And he
Of
probably
course.
talked to you on Instagram.
Maybe. Or maybe he has a great ad because he has an unlimited budget for his ads coming at me too. Um, well, it's so interesting. It's so true. If you do think of it like castle walls, I love that phrasing. Then it's your job to protect the castle. Do you have a moat in place? Do you have the down the bridge with the door, the gate down or up? Like, are you protecting it? And I actually personally do a lot to protect the home because from the moment my children were born and even previous while I was pregnant and pre-pregnancy, I had planned for their future fertility and their future health because I really do think that if you just look at what's coming down the pipeline, if the number of women we're seeing right now are dealing with infertility and fighting it with, which I know so many women who are in that moment, what is that going to look like 30 years down the line for my children? So from the beginning, it was clean water, clean air, clean food, less toxic cleaning products, and all these different habits. But don't you think that we can go a little crazy in that topic? I know I do. So, how do you guide people to do the good, but not get all frantic and frenetic and then have a negative side to it?
Yeah, I mean, so it's very easy to get orthorexic in a world where everything is toxic and everything is poison, and everyone at the park is going to abduct your child and be a child molester, right? Like, it's very difficult to not be like freaked out about the way the world is. And so my counter argument to that is, if you can get your body out of crisis mode and have most of the time your body in rest and digest, you will recalibrate your stress levels to then be able to better ascertain what's worth worrying about. And also, you lengthen your fuse enough to be like, yeah, okay, so damn it. They said it was gluten-free and the guy came out and said it had gluten and I'm 3 bites into it. I'm not going to die. Right. And hopefully that's you. Right. But I think the nature of this conversation is twofold, right? The front half of our conversation and the back half of our conversation are intimately tied in this homeostatic seesaw. If you could lengthen your fuse and boost your resilience with life enhancing, vitality enhancing practices like calming your mind and shifting your NF-kappa B pathways and building your microbiome and doing all the things that bring you true wellness, you have a longer fuse. And then if you start taking the big assaults out slowly, you will start to have a much bigger cushion, a squishier zone in the middle where you're resilient and less reactive and less freaked out. And then life just gets easier. right? And I see that with patients, I see that with students, is you don't have to be perfect. It's almost impossible to be perfect, right? The other day I'm in my Tesla trying to drop my kids off and the school bus is in front of us, right? And the windows are open and the school bus like just gasses the car, right? And we're all just like, oh my God, I just got cancer, right? Like, you know what? You should have had your window closed, 9-year-old, right? Like, come on, right? Like, it happens. It
Yeah.
happens. Now what? Okay, here's some extra carbon. Here's a little bit of a zeolite. Drink some water. Let me put some vegetables in your dinner. Let's conjugate this crap out because your system can handle it. But if you're huffing that every single day, there's nothing I could do to fix it, right? We have to minimize our exposure.
Sure. So minimize the insults and bring up the practices that create that calm, resilient, long fused person. You said long fused. I was like, I'm a pitta dosha. Generally, I don't have a long fuse. Generally, I'm one of those people who I go at life hard and I go at it fast and I'm pushing on so many levels. I slow down I call it treat your body like a Maserati. So I'll slow down because it's kid time. And I don't want to be at that pace for kid time because that never works anyway. I have to downshift. But the minute it's not kid time anymore, the kids are handled, everything's good, I will ramp back up. So when it comes to these practices that help you build the long fuse, I'm sure I know some of the answers already. It's meditation, yoga, but what are some of those other tools that you give your students?
Yeah, it depends on what works for you. The other day I was poo-pooing these PEMF pads and I tried one and I was like, oh, that felt pretty good, right?
Yeah.
For me, it's like, oh yeah, you know what? Getting in the jacuzzi. I use our bathtub more than my wife does. I like throw in all my my Epsom salts and I get in there and I'm like, this is so yummy, right?
I
And
love it.
it's so good. It's so good. It just relaxes your muscles and gives you magnesium. And, the kids know to leave me alone. And that's also a big part of it, right? Like my kids will come in and they'll find me on my meditation cushion, finishing my Qigong or something in the morning. And they're now like, oh, right? Because dad has established the fact that there is space that he needs. And I'll be out in a minute and I will give you my undivided attention, but don't break this wall. Right.
Right.
And so that is also it. Like find a place where you can feel safe to close both your eyes and just go into a deep healing, restorative hibernation, whether it's 20 minutes or a good night's sleep. And then do the things that make you feel like you're playing and make you feel like you're free. It could be drawing, it could be art, it could be walking in nature, but get it. Don't be checking your phone, right? I ruined my hikes a few years ago by inviting one of my partners along and be like, oh, I go on these hikes. You should join me. I'm trying to pull this guy out of his stupid city head. And instead I ruined my hikes because he wouldn't shut the F up. Right. And then I'm finally like, hey man, you know what? I'm not getting what I need out of my hikes anymore because you're vomiting your life all over this trail. So either, let's renegotiate how we hike together or I'm just going to hike alone. Right. And because not that I don't have time for people in helping them, but, vocationally, I call those people patients.
Correct.
Right. If this is my hike, if this is where I need to put on the oxygen mask so I could be the guy I need to be as a husband, a father, a doctor, whatever, I'm not sharing that with the guy who's taking it away.
Right.
Right.
Makes sense. It's healthy
boundaries.
boundaries.
It's just boundaries, right? It's appropriate because it's a boundary that you need to hold for yourself. That's my life garden that this guy's vomiting on.
True. It's very true. And that'll kill it. So it's one of those things where if you can build your practice of your morning, you can call it self-hygiene rituals, you can call it your morning meditation practice, quiet time, collecting pieces, how I think of it. And then also your evening rituals. Like to me, in Ayurveda, we talk so much about the evening rituals that we can do to bookend that end of the day to lead to higher quality sleep and more restful sleep. Then all of a sudden, as long as you've taught everyone, hey, these are my boundaries for myself, all of a sudden everything kind of, like you said, it just drops down a notch. It doesn't have to be so intense and stressful all the time. So I love that.
I think that the art of sleeping 8 out of your 24 hours, you're supposed to be like laying there, helpless and, recovering, right? And most of us expect to go, especially someone like you with your, disposition and how you're wired as you're very fiery. And, I'm going to go all day and then, put the kids down and then I'm going to slam on the brakes after checking my TikTok one more time and then just sleep. And
It's
that's just
true.
not how sleep works, right?
I
It's
know.
not. And so there has to be a deceleration ritual that starts probably, when you wake up, knowing that this is when you make hay. And then throughout the day, it's like, okay, I start booking less intense activities around 2 o'clock, and at 3 or 4 o'clock, I'm not doing anything that intense. I'm, kind of closing my day. Kids come home, it gets yummy and squishy. We do dinner. I might, have to check a couple emails after dinner, but I try not to, depending on what's going on. And then it's like love, family, dogs, food, go to bed. I don't touch my devices and I sleep well. Right.
No,
But that's not because I'm a lucky SOB who just happens to sleep well. It's because I set the stage for sleep with what I do all day, because I value my sleep, because I value tomorrow morning more than I value my stupid Instagram feed tonight.
true.
And you have to have a future forward life garden infused thinking, right? You have to have a filter of your own life garden on top of this, being like, what am I doing? Oh, I just need some brainless duh time because it's been a long day. Okay. Is the feed on your YouTube channel that serves you ads and tries to draw you out of your life more important? Or did you say your hip was sore and you could go get yourself into a pigeon pose on the floor over there and loosen up your body before a good night's sleep? And God forbid, maybe even get laid, right? Like there's so many better things you could be doing in the evening other than scrolling.
True. True. We do spend so much time scrolling. I think it's the biggest time suck, and it's designed to just pull us in, distract us. A lot of times, if I'll do my evening Ayurvedic rituals and not touch my phone, the sleep is profound. It's like that epic, delicious sleep that's so restorative. You wake up, you're like, oh my God, the world's incredible. I am so joyful. I am so lucky. Everything I get to do, I'm just lucky. So I always am seeking out that sleep. And you're right. The minute I choose to work in the evening, like, oh, it's just a few emails or, let me check my messages on Instagram because I get messages all day and I don't have time to check them till I sit in the evening. Boom, you're sucked in. You lose the hour. You lost the evening walk. You lost the evening rituals. Sleep will totally be affected.
Yeah. And then once your sleep's affected, the next day you're drinking a little bit more coffee, which means your blood sugar wobbles a little bit more, which means you grabbed maybe a date, maybe a cookie, maybe, an extra bite of your food. Your caloric intake gets messed up, your leptin and ghrelin get messed up, your cortisol gets skewed, you start, storing more weight, you start not sleeping as well, and you are stumbling and tumbling. And then you go to the A4M and they hand you a cream, right? It's absolutely insane how simple the actual solution is. It's just an inconvenient truth.
True.
Optimize your life for better sleep.
Yeah.
Optimize your life for the things that you value, and then put the time into it. And within a few short weeks, everything starts getting better. And the miracle Hail Mary crap loses its luster because you're not grasping because you're so desperate.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's end on that message today, Pedram, because it's so true. We don't need to be grasping, and we certainly don't need to be tumbling through life. We can set very intentional boundaries on our time, honoring ourselves, putting sleep first so everything else can come after. Sleep is when you heal, rejuvenate, and clear inflammation, and all the good stuff happens. So, will you share where the audience today who's listening in can find you and find more about you so they can continue on this journey with you?
Sure. Thank you. Theurbanmonk.com. So my books, my films, it kind of signposts to all the work I've done. Been busy the last dozen years or so, 12 films and series and 8 books. And I don't know, like I said, 30, 40 courses. So, been a prolific content producer, but I've always followed the breadcrumbs of where my patients and my students, put up flags and been like, help, right? And so just helping people find tools to help themselves. But the moral of the story is empowering people to do it for themselves and their family, because you are the healer. Everyone else is there to help you, right? And so just changing the power dynamics of the top-down hierarchies of I'm the doctor and, do as I say. The doctor can have really good advice, but if you don't listen to your own inner voice and you don't kind of plug into the life that you're living, it's never going to work.
True. Very true. You have to plug into yourself and tune into your inner wisdom, as you started us off with today. So thank you, everyone, for joining us on the Fusionary Health Podcast today. I loved having all of you here listening in. For more information on the podcast, you can visit drshivani.com and definitely check out The Urban Monk. I checked out his website. I'm going to be watching those documentaries with my kids. I'm so excited about them. And thanks so much for joining me today. Thanks for joining me for this episode. Check out our sponsor, Fusionary Formulas, the potent turmeric supplement used by doctors around the U.S. for patients with pain and inflammation. www.fusionaryformulas.com. I'm your host, Dr. Shivani Gupta. For more, visit shivanigupta.com. Subscribe to this podcast in Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Click the follow button or subscribe in any of the apps that you use. That's all I've got for you on the Fusionary Health Podcast this week. You have the power to transform your health and achieve vibrant health starting today.